Welcome to L2 Acquisition Podcast. Our podcast topic for today is enhancing language learning through a blended learning environment. I'm your host, Maria Montemare, and our guest today is Maurice Hazan, creator of QTalk. I really appreciate your time because I know how busy you are. And I want to talk to you today about QTalk. And I think we've had several conversations about QTalk in the past.
In a nutshell, what is QTalk? QTalk is the simplest approach to learning. It's learning by doing. Learning by doing, where children have a feeling of true language ownership, where language, a second language, is no longer something abstract, but it's something that I can customize as a child to my needs. So, and this process is called active cognition. And yet it's the simplest approach to language learning.
Let me ask you, how many countries are you in now? How many countries are using QTalk? Or maybe I should say, how many languages is QTalk teaching?
Well, QTalk is available in Spanish, French, Chinese, Arabic. Right now, I'm rewriting a new Japanese series for little children. Quite a few.
My experience with QTalk, and I'll just kind of give you a little bit of my background for the podcast, is that when I first started teaching with it, I was very skeptical. And I kind of rolled my eyes and I thought, yeah, right, we're going to teach with hieroglyphics, basically, just pictures. And I thought, well, I'm game for anything. My principal wants me to use this curriculum. I'm going to give it a try. And I was completely astonished. Within a couple of months, I saw how effective the program really is. I teach everything from first grade to 8th grade. So I really focused on QTalk with my elementary students. And I even have an autistic child in my class. So I wasn't sure how that was going to work for him. But lo and behold, it worked. And there were so many jaw-dropping moments for me when I was teaching, and I'd ask for volunteers. And at an elementary age, everybody wants to volunteer. Even if they don't know what they're doing, their hands go up and they want to come up to the board and they want to participate. So I pick a few and everybody's hands are up and I bring them up, and I'm using ViewSonic to display QTalk. And the kids are, I point to the sentence that is displayed and they're reading it to me in Spanish. And I'm just floored because the pronunciation is good. They're reading it. They're understanding what they're reading. And it was amazing. I mean, to have that kind of participation and acknowledgement all within a couple of short months, and really even sooner than 2 months, I would say. It was almost immediate that I was seeing progress. And I'll talk a little bit about the autistic child in my class. He does come with an aide, and she helps keep him focused. And I won't say that he's completely nonverbal. So I wasn't sure how this was going to work out for him, but he was one of the ones raising his hand, wanting to come up to the board, and I'd point. And, he would say it kind of in a low tone, but I could still hear it. Or when I'd say, can you point to, and I'd, give him an example, and he knew exactly what I was talking about. So I say that this is my huge introduction to my experience with QTalk. And so I'm sorry, I'm dominating the podcast here, but
No, this is great.
I wanted to make sure that whoever is going to be listening to this understands that I'm a traditional Spanish teacher. This was completely foreign to me, completely out of the realm, completely, I guess you would say, out of the box. You had to do a lot of thinking out of the box. And I wanted to get some background from you. I know that you were a French teacher at one point. You came to the United States, that you're from France, and you were teaching French, and then you somehow just connected the dots. And can you tell me a little bit about that?
Right, right. Okay, so I was born in Paris, France, from a German mother and an Egyptian Jewish father. My father spoke Arabic at home, that was his native language. My mother would speak German to me. They would speak English together. We would speak French in the street. My father, for fun, would try to teach me Turkish and Spanish. He could speak other languages. My mom also liked to speak other languages. So languages were something in our home. When I first arrived in America in 1991, I arrived as a corporate translator. Then some people said to me, I think they're looking for a French teacher at l'Alliance Française. One day at l'Alliance Française, though, somebody threw by accident, this lady, she tossed 3 flashcards on the table. And it's funny because the way she tossed them on the table, the flashcards landed in a pattern, but 2 of them sparked my interest. It was a picture of a dog, and the other flashcard was the picture of some trees. And I was thinking, that's interesting. This is like a dog in a park. If there was a middle flashcard, I could make a sentence. And immediately, boom, my elementary teaching career really began in a Catholic private school, where, as it often happens, people are enlightened enough to let you, develop an idea. And the first thing I did was I started drawing some pictures on the chalkboard. This idea I had a few weeks before actually panned out to be right. Children looked at those pictures and felt compelled to say those pictures out loud. And before I could actually invite the children to read the sentence, and we say read, but we're not talking about text, we're just talking about pictures. The children took it upon themselves to start interpreting that picture sentence on their own.
It's amazing. It is. It's truly amazing.
In education, we would call this comprehensible input paired with compelling output. In the 70s, they started a movement in the Chicago schools called learning by doing. And I think that's what we do. Children have no cognitive inclination for, let me explain something to you before we can do it. No. What we do at QTalk, we completely bypass the stage of introduction. When people interpret our logographic sentences, this is what happens. They look. As they look, they interpret the message. As they do this, they say it out loud. Language becomes a 3-dimensional box of Legos, and I can try to fit them together. And gradually, I know which one fits and which one doesn't fit. This is why even a 6 or 7-year-old will intuitively understand, realize the correct syntax in a specific language. And it's interesting because we have videos of children switching from Russian to Arabic to French to Chinese and Spanish. We have videos of kids switching from 6 languages, and what they do is they slide the pictures in the correct syntax. And this is where you can really verify, you can see, wow, they truly understand the language. This is called active cognition. Active cognition means that the learner can verify on her own or on his own if what he is doing is correct. I'm going to hear it immediately. It's a neural feedback where I'm going to autocorrect myself. Active cognition is key in children's development.
So in a lot of ways, what you're describing to me is that students, even young, very young students, are actually taking ownership of their own learning through QTalk by their visualization and their interpretation and their playing with the cards.
That's right. Because active cognition is also known as active interpretation. When children interpret your sentences, what they do is it's the same neurological process as if they were creating a sentence.
Another question. We have had an influx of immigrants coming from Spanish-speaking countries. And so the need is to learn English. Do you have a version that you're working on for non-English speakers to learn English? Something that
Of course, yeah, we have a very big English series that we created in China. What we do well is to bring a child from no communicative skills to what I like to call level 5 out of 10.
Mhm.
Level 5 means you are able to juggle with approximately 250 words. That's pretty much all you need to be truly functional in a country. So I want to talk about, that's a very interesting thing. Sometimes I will read the standard of a state, okay? And the state wants to adopt a textbook series. And here are the benchmarks to meet. And when it comes to children, it's always single word memorization or what I call fossilized sentences, meaning greetings, okay, or sentences related to holidays. Feliz Navidad, okay? You know, if I say Feliz Navidad, some children might not even realize which of these two words means happy and what is the other word that means Christmas, okay?
Right.
Now, we make children communicative literally from the first 5 minutes. A 3-word sentence is a sentence. So this is what we do. So what I'm trying to say is, because there was no medium to convey, to encode the information, the standards were written, the standards were created around a technical limitation, expensive to burn. What I'm trying to say is sometimes a technical innovation will come and will actually make a sociological change, and in this case, an educational change. What about culture? Well, if I am in New Delhi, in Shanghai, if I'm in Buenos Aires, if I am in Sydney, if I am in the most remote region, I could go to a Starbucks. I could go and shop at Old Navy. Meaning, what I'm trying to say is culture, what we eat, what we buy, what we do every day, is become homogenized around the world. The one thing, the most important cultural aspect of a language, of a country, it is language. The language is the culture. Well, let's have a whole unit on comparing this culture to all culture. Well, there's no more comparisons. Kids, wherever you go, everybody loves Britney Spears, whether you are in Paris or in China.
Right.
So
yeah, globally, because of the internet, we're no longer isolated. Everybody knows a little bit about every country.
right.
It people are no longer surprised about, culture. There are still cultural items that each country does. For
Of
example,
course.
the siesta, tea time, things that are very inherent to different cultures. But by and large, you're correct. I mean, globally now, we are so open to where people just really know what other countries are doing and have adopted a lot of things. Like, for example, Starbucks, and our entertainers like Britney Spears that you mentioned. Everybody knows these. You know, if you're aware and if you're on the internet, if you're on TikTok, how can you not, right?
Right.
So,
Exactly.
yeah, so I think culturally, when I teach culture, I don't really spend a lot of time on it. I do a little bit here and there. I do, you know, for me, I think the most effective teaching of culture is travel. So I think that if you're in middle school, high school, I think planning a trip abroad to a country of the target language is much more effective than spending a couple of weeks on teaching culture about a particular country.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is recently the United States has seen an influx of immigrants from all over the world, including many from Spanish-speaking countries. So there's more reason now than ever for students to learn another language. Um, one of the barriers I would say is lack of motivation, and students would say, why do I need to learn another language? I'm never going to use it. Well, now we have the argument that you probably will encounter people who speak another language simply because of where we are in the world right now. So we're talking about motivation and why students need to learn another language. What is, the good thing about learning another language and the necessary thing about learning another language?
It is difficult for people to learn another language when they have various filters of resistance, right? And and one filter of resistance we have in America, understandably so, is we view our world, our culture as dominant. Everything we consume, watch, listen to, read, buy, everything reaffirms that we live in the country that leads the way in fashion, music, movies, food, whatever. What is the rationale? Why should I speak another language as a learner? What am I going to do to not coerce, but to make my children want to learn a second language? So it is important to make them want to speak a second language.
And how do you do that?
Well, here's something. With children, it's easy. Make them play complex strategy games where there will be a clear outcome. I won, but the games are designed that they're fast-paced. Everybody gets a turn to win, and it's extremely fun. Make it fun. Use their mind. The children are so intelligent. Use their complex deductive reasoning skills to make them want to speak, and then you'll get there. Now, teenagers, can I play games with teenagers? I'm not sure. Aha. But I just released something I wanted to release for the last 15 years, a science fiction series in Spanish and French. I finally released the first chapter of it to Spanish teachers. Spanish teachers told me it's incredible. They did not want to leave the room. They wanted to understand every single word. They wanted to understand everything you wrote in that science fiction story. So what I did is I used artificial intelligence to produce incredible graphics. And now I'm making them jump in the future. And in the future America, people speak Spanish. And but the graphics, the setting, the context, it's all about making them want to learn. A teacher told me, Maurice, I'm ready to drive to New York, spend the summer with you so we can accelerate the completion of that series. My students were crazy about it.
That's
So
wonderful.
that's, yeah. So I urge you to take a look at it. It's really a lot of fun. Now,
So that brings me to the next thing,
yeah,
technology in the classroom
okay,
and,
yeah.
and the importance of technology in language learning.
Students starting from the age of 9 or 10, and I'm sure you experienced that, not as early as 9 or 10 because you are in a good school, but I see children here 8 or 9 years old, they have a smartphone.
Oh, no, even much younger than that. Much younger than that. They are almost born knowing technology because their parents are technology driven.
Right. So technology is a necessary evil.
Blended classroom. So I consider QTalk a tech-driven program because I have to use my ViewSonic. The children play the games on the computer. So in that sense, technology is really important to have in the classroom, creating a blended classroom where it's teacher-led and also with the component of the computers and technology, which we need for QTalk. So in that sense, how important is technology in the classroom to you?
Technology in the classroom, to me, is only a means to an end. So what we do is we pair technology and toys, and it's interesting. I looked at how many online games we created over the last 3 years. We created 4,800 and to this morning, 4,832 online games. So for me, technology is, when you produce technology, you must give it a really a human feel to it.
But let me just say that the video games that you have created within your program, let's call it content gamification, are very appealing to students, especially young students, because they're playing, they're winning, they can see where they've gone wrong, they help each other. And I think that it is a value add to your program.
Yeah, no, absolutely. My technology is just a means to an end. It's only there to teach them or help them learn.
Thank you for joining us on this podcast. We hope you enjoyed getting to learn a little bit more about QTalk and how it works. If you're interested in learning more about QTalk, there are various videos available to you on YouTube, including a TED Talk. I also have a discount code available for you if you are interested. Again, thank you so much for joining us.